students, welcome to the lecture on Human Resource Planning, Evolution. And after the lecture, we will be able to learn the following objectives. Describe the historical evolution of HRP, explain the contemporary approach to HRP, describe the objectives of HRP, understand the relationship of strategic planning and HRP, discuss the problems in HRP. Let's start with a brief introduction to human resource planning. Human resource planning is the process by which a management determines how an organization should move from its current manpower position to its desired manpower position. This way, a management strives to have the right number and the right kind of people at the right places at the right time. Human resources are an organization's greatest assets because without them, everyday business functions such as managing cash flow, making business transactions, communicating through all forms of media, and dealing with customers could not be completed. Human resources and the potential they possess are key drivers for an organization's success. With globalization and technological advances, today's organizations are continuously changing. Thus, organizational change impacts not only the business, but also its employees. The term for HRM has been understood as the only word to represent and explain the management and development of human resources from the point of recruitment to compensation and rewards through to career management and development to the point of retirement. Hence, it is pertinent to examine the terms that evolve around the management and development of human resources in organizations. Let's discuss about the historical evolution of human resource planning. This historical analysis will show how the role in HRP in the firm has changed over time, from primarily being concerned with routine transactional and traditional HR activities to dealing with complex transformational ones. Pre-World War II. In the early 20th century and prior to World War II, the personnel function was primarily involved in clerical record-keeping of employee information. In other words, it fulfilled a caretaker function. During this period, the prevailing management philosophy was called scientific management. At this point in history, there were very few government influences in employment relations. Consequently, employment terms, practices, and conditions were left to the owners of the firm. As a result, abuses such as child labor and unsafe working conditions were common. Some employers set up labor welfare and administration departments to look after the interests of the workers by maintaining records on health and safety, as well as recording hours worked and payroll. Post-World War II, 1945 to 1960. The mobilization and utilization of labor during the war had a great impact on the development of the personnel function. Managers realized that employee productivity and motivation had a significant impact on the profitability of the firm. The human relations movement after the war emphasized that employees were motivated not just by money, but also by social and psychological factors, such as receiving recognition for work accomplished or for the achievement of work norms. Social Issues Era, 1963 to 1980. This period witnessed an unprecedented increase in the amount of labor legislation in the United States. Legislation that governed the various parts of the employment relationship, such as the prohibition of discriminatory practices, the promotion of occupational health and safety, the provision of retirement benefits, and tax regulation. As a result, the personnel department was burdened with the additional responsibility of legislative compliance that required collection, analysis, and reporting of voluminous data to statutory authorities. Simultaneously, computer technology was evolving and delivering better productivity at lower costs. These technology developments and increased vendor activity led to the development of a Comprehensive Management Information System, MIS, for HRP. The decreasing costs of computer technology versus the increasing costs of employee compensation and benefits made the acquisition of computer-based HR systems, HRIS, a necessary business decision. Cost-effectiveness era, 1980 to the early 1990s. With increasing competition from emerging European and Asian economies, U.S. and other multinational firms increased their focus on cost reduction through automation and other productivity improvement measures. As regards to HRM, the increased administrative burden intensified the need to fulfill a growing number of legislative requirements, while the overall functional focus shifted from employee administration to employee development and involvement. Technological advancement era and the emergence of strategic HRM, 1990 to present. The economic landscape underwent radical changes throughout the 1990s with increasing globalization, technological breakthroughs, and hyper-competition. Business process re-engineering exercises became more common and frequent, resulting in several initiatives such as the right-sizing of employee numbers, reducing the layers of management, reducing the bureaucracy of organizational structures, creating autonomous work teams, and outsourcing. Now we will talk about the contemporary approach to HRP. Human resource planning is concerned with the determination of the size and competition of personnel needed by the organization over a specific future period. It includes the formulation of relevant policies, programs, and strategies for meeting such requirements in an efficient manner. Recruiting and developing talent. Recruiting and developing talent have always been a critical human resource function. Even in tough economic times, human resource and organizational leaders are concerned with having the right people on board in the right roles. While human resource departments search for technical skills and expertise, cultural fit is also an important issue. Matching staffing with business requirements. Business environments are continually changing. Human resource leaders need to plan for these changes and adjust overall staffing to match business requirements. For instance, as the internet has become more important to organizations, human resources has needed to either train internal staff to take on roles related to maintaining and growing an internet presence, or hire talent from the outside. Training and retraining. Training is a critical human resource function. New technology, new equipment, new legal and regulatory demands, and new expectations from customers all require new information and new skill development for employees. Human resources needs to both train employees to acquire new skills and retrain employees whose current skills are no longer necessary. Downsizing. Downsizing is an unfortunate fact of life for some organizations. When business declines or certain skills are no longer necessary for the organization, human resource planning efforts need to focus on how to reduce the workforce in ways that are fair and focused on business needs. Here, we will learn about HRP process. Human resource planning is a process through which the company anticipates future business and environmental forces. The major steps involved in human resource planning are supply forecasting. Supply is another side of human resource assessment. It is concerned with the estimation of supply of manpower given the analysis of current resource and future availability of human resource in the organization. It estimates the future sources of HR that are likely to be available from within and outside the organization. Matching demand and supply. It is another step of human resource planning. It is concerned with bringing the forecast of future demand and supply of HR. The matching process refers to bring demand and supply in an equilibrium position so that shortages and overstaffing position will be solved. In case of shortages, an organization has to hire more required number of employees. Action plan. It is the last phase of human resource planning, which is concerned with surplus and shortages of human resource. Under it, the HR plan is executed through the designation of different HR activities. The major activities which are required to execute the HR plan are recruitment, selection, placement, training and development, socialization, etc. Finally, this step is followed by control and evaluation of performance of HR to check whether the HR planning matches the HR objectives and policies. Now we will talk about the objectives of human resource planning. Some of the objectives of human resource planning are to avoid problems arising from surplus or deficits of manpower, to help in obtaining and retaining the quality and quantity of manpower, to ensure best use of manpower resources, to ensure qualified people are in the team for performing different tasks. Steps in human resource planning. There are different types of steps involved in human resource planning. First of all, prepare a chart of present employees with data like skill, age, experience, qualification, position, cost, etc. Future plans of expansion of the organization, technology changes and reforms must also be taken into consideration while planning for the human resource. Determination of organizational requirements. Determination of skills and expertise required to achieve the organizational and departmental objectives. Determination of the additional human resource requirements in the near future. Developing action plans to meet the future human resource needs. Let's talk about the strategic planning and human resource planning relationship. Strategic planning and human resources planning are closely linked. Often, when a firm develops a strategic plan, it is necessary to develop a human resources plan to support it. For example, if a strategic plan calls for the firm to develop new capabilities in scientific research, then the human resources plan will have to reflect this. In this case, a specific human resources plan will need to be developed to focus on recruiting and training people to work as scientific researchers. Hence, the relationship between HR planning and strategic planning can be depicted under the aspects like follower relationship of HR plan. This relationship depicts that an HR plan is an integral part of the overall corporate plan of the organization. HR plan is based upon the overall objectives and strategies of the company. It is prepared by following the guidelines by the overall corporate plan of the organization. Hence, it is tailored to meet the needs of the overall mission, vision, and objective of the company. Partner relationship of HR plan. When the HR plan and strategic plan are formulated simultaneously, it is supposed that they have partner relationship. Under it, it is assumed that HR and HR manager are considered as a valuable resource in the organization, and it ensures that the employees are fully participated in strategy implementation. Finance resource. The finance resource refers to the money or capital that is used to pay for or fund all the organization's activities. This resource includes money that is generated by sales, loans, grants, or donations. It also includes any capital assets that could be sold or used as collateral toward further loans or grants. Just like the technology resource, there are 3 areas where actions are identified for the finance resource. The finance strategic plan is a plan that identifies how to effectively generate the money, manage the money, and forecast the revenue and expenses. Human resource. The human resource refers to the people whose knowledge, skills, and abilities are utilized to create and deliver the product and service. This resource is considered to be an organization's greatest resource. This is due to the fact that an organization could not be managed or products and services created and delivered without the use of the people. Technology and money are also required to achieve the goals of the organization, but these resources cannot be utilized without some assistance from people. Now, we will talk about problems in HRP. Human resource planning involves projecting how many people will be needed to fill positions in an organization. Uncertain economic conditions, such as overseas competition and changes in technology, are examples of why an organization might adjust its hiring needs. Some basic problems in HRP are mismatch between applicants and skills. An organization may find it difficult to fill the positions called for by HR planners. This might be because there is more demand in the organization than there is in available talent in the job market. Another reason is that the organization's recruiting strategies are not attracting the right talent. Not being able to fill positions that are critical to achieving operational goals leaves the organization in a weak business position. Environmental issues. Environmental issues can occur inside an organization. Demographic changes affect the internal work climate. Also, technological changes require workers to continuously add new technical skills. If employees' current skills are not needed, they may become redundant. HR planning involves planning for organizational learning or developing staff skills to keep pace with changes in the business market. Recruitment and selection. Organizations get better staffing results when they can count on HR departments and line managers to do their own jobs effectively. The HR department posts the steps in the hiring process, policies and procedures, and documents on the company intranet. Although HR personnel may consult about questions, line managers must be able to follow guidelines for recruitment and hiring without exposing the organization to liability. Training and development. Line managers must do more than recruitment and hiring. They must perform other jobs that used to be associated with personnel departments. They must address their own employees' training and development needs. Line managers must find all of the resources inside and outside the organization to ensure employees develop the required skills. Effective communication between line managers and HR personnel planners can result in effective identification of training and development needs exceeding current resources.
Training is the process of teaching employees the basic skills they need to perform their jobs or for developing additional skills. The firm's training programs must make sense in terms of the company's strategic goals. For example, if one of the goals of the company is to expand its international market, then one of the things they may focus on is training their employees in multiple languages. Also, training is part of the larger issue of performance management. This is an integrated, goal-oriented approach to assigning, training, assessing, and rewarding employees' performance. Managers set goals for their employees, and training is one of the ways an organization helps an employee meet those goals. The training process includes these 5 steps. It is important that each step in the process be completed thoroughly because each builds on the other. The more time and effort spent on the previous step, the better the next steps can be. Step 1, Needs Analysis, identifies the training needs of an employee. The 2 main ways of identifying those needs are through a task analysis and a performance analysis. The task analysis is a detailed study of a job to identify the specific skills required, especially for new employees. A task analysis record form can also be used. Here is an example of this form for a printing press operator. The task analyses contain the following information: a task list, when and how often each task is performed, the quantity and quality of performance expected, the working conditions, the skills or knowledge required, and where those can be best learned. The second type of needs analysis is a performance analysis. The goal here is to verify if there is a performance deficiency and to determine whether that deficiency should be corrected through training or through some other means, such as transferring the employee. There are several methods that can be used to identify an employee's training needs, including 360-degree performance reviews, job-related performance data, observations by supervisors or other specialists, and tests of things like job knowledge and skills. When beginning the discussion of what types of training methods to use, there are several tips to keep in mind to make the training more effective. First, the learning needs to be meaningful. Material that is meaningful is usually easier for trainees to understand and remember. For example, it is important at the start of training to provide a bird's-eye view of the material to be presented. It is also valuable to use a variety of familiar examples and to organize the information so it can be presented logically and in meaningful units. Second, it is imperative to design the training to make it easy for the skills being learned to transfer from the training site to the job site. This can be accomplished by maximizing the similarity between the training environment and the work situation, and by providing time for adequate practice. It is also important to provide a heads-up or some preparatory information that lets trainees know what problems or situations may occur on the job. Lastly, it is important to motivate the learner. This is easily done by defining for the learner why the training is important and how it will benefit them. People learn best by doing, so provide as much realistic practice as possible and allow them to learn at their own pace. Trainees also learn best when the trainers immediately reinforce correct responses. With this in mind, take a look at several different methods organizations can use when designing their training. I will not spend time discussing all of them as you can read about them in your text, but understand that each method has advantages and disadvantages. Thus, depending on the situation, each method can be a valuable tool for teaching employees new skills and behaviors. Step 3 is the validation process. By now, the term validity should be a familiar one. We discussed this in great detail during the selection chapter when we talked about how organizations create valid selection measures for hiring new employees. In order to determine a training's validity, the company must test the training on a sample of employees to see if those who receive the training have better performance on the job than those who did not receive the training. This sampling process should be conducted on multiple groups to make sure the training is valid. Implementation, step 4, is the easiest to do if all previous steps have been done well. Now we simply need to train the employees that need to learn this skill or behavior. It is important to schedule the training at a time when the employee is fresh and that the training is broken down into small segments to lower the chance of fatigue. Step 5, evaluating the training, is the most overlooked step. In many instances, organizations will spend a lot of time and resources on the first 4 steps and then completely forget about what is arguably the most important part of the training process. My point is that it makes no sense for organizations to spend hundreds or even tens of thousands of dollars on designing a training program to not have any proof that the training actually has proven results. There are 4 basic ways to measure training effectiveness. The first is the trainee's reaction to or perception of the training. Did they like it? Did they enjoy it? These reactions are very similar to the types of evaluations you complete at the end of every semester on your teachers. The second way is to measure the trainee's learning. This can be done by testing the individual's knowledge of the material covered. Third is to assess the trainee's behavior. Are they using the skills or behavior they learned in the training in the actual work environment? Lastly, organizations should measure the results or outcomes of the training. In other words, did those who participated in the training actually improve their job performance? This is an example of a time series experiment. Before training, the company measures employee performance several times. In a perfect world, this is what all organizations hope to see as a result of training. Ultimately, what organizations want to see is a significant increase in employee performance, which is illustrated on the right side of the graph. In the end, if organizations can't track this and understand how training is affecting performance, then the training is not as effective as it could be. In conclusion, today we have discussed the basics of designing and implementing a training program. It is a complicated and time-consuming process, but in the end, a well-constructed training program is worth the effort, which must include all 5 steps.
Now, in the end, let us summarize what we have learned in this lecture. Human resource planning is the process by which a management determines how an organization should move from its current manpower position to its desired manpower position. HR planning is a continuous process which starts with identification of HR objectives, moves through analysis of manpower resources, and ends at appraisal of HR planning. HR forecasting is the process of estimating demand for and supply of HR in an organization. The human resource refers to the people whose knowledge, skills, and abilities are utilized to create and deliver the product and service. Strategic planning is a systematic approach of analyzing the opportunities and threats in the environment to enhance the efficiency and organizational productivity.